to look at oneself and to think with justifiable pride, I'm at the front. Oh, how eloquent that first letter, written sitting on your pack as shells whistle overhead. And how that first time in the trenches changes the hearts of men. Even the light-hearted are serious. In the blink of an eye, all is set ablaze, and suddenly we understand what our country expects of us. We were confident our fathers, mothers, our wives, and our children were with us in thought. Still, as we went in, all was left behind. Love, joy, freedom. Claudius Corneliu, 22nd Battalion.
Reveille sounded at 4:30. The barracks was in a howl. Everybody began
troubled
yelling
that no one
and
came to
singing
see me,
and kept it up until
and I don't know
breakfast.
why I haven't received an answer
Dear
to my
Mother,
letter this week.
Just a quick note.
I haven't received anything.
I am very well, as always.
I wish
Today
some
in
of
the
you
pouring
people were
rain,
over
we
here
were
to see your
inspected by
Canadian
the
chap.
The troops were all assembled in a picturesque valley.
We are going on a hospital ship, I think. But
I
do
hope
not
all
know
is well
when.
with the family and that all are in good
Love
health.
to all and tell them not to
Goodbye,
worry about
and
me.
greetings to all.
I'm going to be all right and pull through. We marched out in the streets in platoons, and were cheered and clapped over and over again. We marched down Metcalfe Street, and when we got to St. Catherine's, we couldn't push our way through. People crowded into the ranks and walked with us, everybody cheering and clapping and shaking your hand and wishing you good luck. Girls would throw their arms around you and kiss you goodbye.
My dear mother, I spoke to the colonel, and he said, yes, Miss MacDonald, we want some good nurses. He said he would do all he could. Did I tell you I was in charge of the bunch? 19 in all, some old enough to be my mother. Why, far older than you, mother dear. With love, Catherine.
Dear Mother, I don't really know where to start to tell you my impressions of the voyage. First off, we left Amherst at 10 a.m. We had lots of fun on the train, and the villages we passed on the way were all lovely. We arrived in Halifax at 4:30 p.m. the same day, and there were vehicles waiting to take us to the docks, and we boarded the Saxony immediately. The sergeants were put in the second-class cabins. We were 4 to a cabin, very comfortable. Your son, Edouard.
Good mother. I'm rushing to write to you to tell you that the crossing was very nice, and to thank you for your prayers, because though I came on board with a temperature of 103, I wasn't seasick once during the whole trip. Goodbye and good health to all. Don't forget to pray for me. I am brave. Sergeant Major Nap Marion, 22nd Battalion.
My dear Papa, our camp is situated at East Sandling, 3.5 miles from Shorncliffe and 4 miles from Folkestone, one of the most beautiful beaches in England. We are 80 miles from the front, from Ypres, for example, and we are well aware of the graveness of the situation, as we are in close contact with the wounded that arrive here in great numbers. There is a hospital in Shorncliffe where there are many Canadians. Most affectionate regards to Mother and the children. George Vanier, 22nd Battalion.
We have had a very busy week of it, out day and night and with very little sleep, and of course it has to rain every day just to keep you wet all the time and uncomfortable. We were about 40,000, and to look down that field as we marched up to form in platoons for the march past, all the bayonets fixed and all in line, the steel just looked like a huge piece of ice. I wish some of you people were over here to see your Canadian chaps. I tell you, it's an honor to be one of them, and better still to be one of the old 24th. Your loving son, Leo Leboutier.
We are being prepared for the kind of life we will lead at the front. The men are anxious to get going. I am confident they will fight with vigor and enthusiasm. It is clear the British authorities intend to make sure that every soldier is properly trained before being sent into action. Otherwise, we would have been in France a long time ago. I've nearly completed my 9th month of training. Never would I have foreseen such lengthy preliminaries.
I must tell you I am in perfect health, and that the training doesn't scare me one bit, and there is nothing that would please me more than to get to the front as soon as possible, so I can get back to Canada as soon as possible. I don't have to tell you how excited I am to go to the front. I'm getting sick and tired of all the training, and I cannot wait for the real thing.
This afternoon we left for France. We spent last night on the docks at Southampton. The men are in the best of spirits. Who could ask for more? The train ride from Shorncliffe to Southampton was splendid. Crowds cheered and applauded us at every stop.
Well, we are warned for France. That is the unit, and we're doing our best to go with them. They're going soon, so they, the unit, and we may be gone before you get this. Hope so.
By the time you receive this letter, I will be in France or maybe elsewhere. The crossing of the Channel can be very dangerous. We've worked very hard the last few days to make sure all is ready.
We left the train before dinner and started out on our march. We had nothing to eat till dinner time and set out again in an hour. The men fell out, one after the other. They were walking all over the place. Some of the fellows got so all in that we took their equipment away from them piece by piece until they were walking along in their shirt sleeves, not carrying a thing. Love to all, and don't worry, I'm feeling quite well, content, and happy. We may be some days before we are in the trenches yet, so are quite safe. Your loving son, Leo.
Good mother, I am happy to have some free time to write and to tell you that my health is good. But I am sad to say that every time the mail is delivered, I am disappointed. I've received nothing, neither from the family or from Miss Famillar. I am asking myself what could be wrong. I hope nothing has happened to the family. Could you please find out about Miss Famillar? She has not written a single letter since I've been here. Nap Mario.
We entered, gaping at the slimy passageways, the appalling mazes, the gloomy trenches, the barbarically twisted web of barbed wire. Latent rockets fired off in all directions climbed toward the darkened heavens, and then beat down on the putrefied terrain. Guns howled all around us. Shrapnel ripped through mutilated trees. Bullets, screaming like shrill saws, swept across the parapet. We sensed the storm brewing in a suffocating atmosphere. A shivering chill caressed our spine.
I have just spent my first day in the front-line trenches, not 250 yards from the Boche. We quickly get used to the sound of bullets whistling overhead, to the explosions, and to whatever other infernal devices the Germans may have thought up. At night, the effect is magical. Fireworks light up the German lines. Shells burst in fantastic and picturesque streams of light. Men all around us singing and working, pleased with their lot. It is all very impressive. The game was well worth the candle. In this life of intense reality, we acquire a very humane point of view that never leaves us. Do not think that the initial sensation is disagreeable, because it is not. A little astonishment and surprise at first, then almost indifference. How quickly we become accustomed to the baser instincts.
Dear Stella, Loretta asks how many Germans I have killed. Well, perhaps she will be surprised if I say I am damn sure I haven't killed any. In the first place, you don't see anything to shoot at, as I am damn sure the Germans don't put their heads over unless at night, and then we bang away and I don't know if we hit anything or not. And during the day, if we put our head up to look around, it's goodbye to us too. You see, it's all about snipers and artillery work. We rain shells over on their infantry and they slam back at us. And then when we feel like taking their trench, we run across and put the bayonet to them and drive them out. You see, the infantry in this war is just fodder for the guns. Leo Leboutier.
Our subterranean life continues with few tragic incidents. Our sector is quiet, and we have suffered few losses. The daily bombardments do not worry us in the least. Our artillery is far superior to that of the Germans. We are continuing our 6-day rotation in the trenches and 6 days of rest at a camp, 4 miles from the front. We have not taken part in an attack as of yet, but the men are eager to go over the parapet to push back the enemy.
Every hour, day or night, the Germans rained murderous fire on our position. The deafening noise lasted for hours at a time, stopped, and then started again, even louder than before.
How's the family? I hope that all are well and that soon I will see them soon, because things here are not going very well. Sergeant Hogue is dead. He was hit by shrapnel in the back while he was bandaging another soldier. We are doing our duty. Our battalion is the best. Greetings to all and good luck. No news yet from Miss Famillard. Sergeant Major Napoleon Marion.
It saddens me to tell you that the 22nd lost an officer today. He is the first officer to die, and the loss is very painful for us, his comrades. Major Roy was killed this afternoon by a German bomb that landed a few feet from him. The bomb did not explode at first.
To save the lives of those nearest him, Major Roy tried to throw it out of the trench when it exploded, wounding him seriously over most of his body. He was completely inert. He even had pieces of wood from the sidewalk lodged in his throat. He was still breathing. We bandaged him as best we could until we realized he had died. Edouard Legaré.
There's still no talk of peace here. I can't wait to see all of you. God willing, as soon as possible. I've written a final letter to Miss Famillard, giving her a piece of my mind. After I sent the letter, I received a very simple New Year's card from her. I guess you don't go to war without it costing you something. I submit to what fate has in store for me. I embrace you all and ask you to pray for me so that he might improve my chances. Your son, Sergeant Major Nap Marion.
I have still not been wounded or killed, thanks to divine providence. Twice I was scared out of my wits, though. I was in my gun pit there, where our machine gun is mounted, talking with the lads when a German shell smashed into the gun pit and exploded, dropping the roof onto our backs. 3 feet of earth is heavy. Edouard Legaré.
Our old trenches are in an awful mess. Mud to your knees and in some places almost to your hips. I am lucky to have my little dugout so comfortable, so if I get wet, we have a fire to get dry again. But some poor chaps are in an awful mess. Love and kisses, and write often. You don't know what a letter from home means over here. My God, you can't imagine how we look forward to a letter.
Dear sister, I was very moved by your kind and oh so touching letter. You wouldn't believe the pleasure that comes with a letter from loved ones, especially when boredom sets in, which can dampen the spirits. What I mean is, don't ever hesitate to write me a few words whenever you have some free time. We went to an old Benedictine monastery. I often think of you when I walk through the chapel and I see the cloister. I always imagine seeing you entering there and smiling, asking me to tell you about the life we are leading and the atrocities of war. And though I would like to tell you, we're not allowed. Pray that I may return to Canada to see Mother again and all of you, and to tell you of my perilous journey. I am confident the good Lord will not turn a deaf ear to all of your ardent prayers, and that one day I will be told to return to Canada, because I have done my share and my patriotic duty. Edouard Légaré.
With every step we stumbled over bodies, some stiff, face down unrecognizable. Others rigid, bloody, eyes popping as though frozen toward heaven in a silent and painful pose. The cadaverous smell made us retch. Petrified by these horrible deaths, terrified at the thought that with tomorrow, our turn could come, and we would be found in one of these tragic poses, forgotten in the repulsive mud. Without a cross, without a cemetery. We went forward, our hearts twisted with fear.
Tomorrow I return to the trenches for 4 days. I cannot speak of the war, for I do not know the words that could make you understand. The only thing I can say is that it is terrible, unbelievable.
We returned to the trenches the day before yesterday. Not the most comforting of spectacles. We were up to our knees in mud, and the German artillery were taking pleasure in sending us shrapnel. If you could see our men, you would be so proud. A machine gunner, hit in the hip, undid his own trousers and soaked the wound with iodine. After that, he helped bandage his leg. This is only one example amongst 1,000.
I've not written for 2 or 3 days, but have been so busy that when I got off duty, I was too tired to write. The war news does not look very good, does it? We're simply rushed. Very quick work in the line in the AM and here at night. Poor fellows. They have some awful wounds. We have one very sick man. Amputation of both legs above the knee. He lost so much blood that I'm afraid for him. We had to send him to the OR again tonight, and when he came back, he would not rest unless he had my hand. He is a dear, but I'm so afraid he will go out.
I am back in the trenches, and let me tell you something. It has been the hardest time since I've been with the battalion. I've been buried a couple of times, but thanks to your prayers, I made it out all right. And I'm proud to say that besides that, I'm in good health. It's no bed of roses, but I bow to God's will. Your son, Sergeant Major Knapp Marion.
My dearest Francis, I was very, very glad to receive the relic of Saint-Sebastien, given to you by your mistress at convent, and I will always carry it with me. This relic coupled with your prayers and those of my dear relatives and friends, will protect me. I know how precious a thing a relic is. I shall carry it through the war with me, and I hope to return it to the lender when the Allies have won a victorious peace. P.S. Be as prudent in the streets of Montreal as you can, for when you are careless for a moment, it is just the time you may be hit by a streetcar. Obey me, eh?
I know how you all must be worrying, but I am still alive and well, and we must thank God for his protection in pulling me through these last 2 tours in the trenches. I am sorry to say, though, Mama, one of our best men, who was out on a job with me, was killed. The greatest lad you ever met. I hope to be able to tell you more about him later.
Dear mums and sis, I suppose we will have another big push again. Hope they make one grand one and finish. But don't worry. We are far from home.
Dear sister, I have just witnessed a disturbing scene. I was in the front lines when an enemy airplane flew overhead and dropped 2 bombs which killed 6 men and wounded 5 others. It all happened less than 10 feet from me. The wounded had to be gotten out, which wasn't an easy thing. 2 of our brave men volunteered and carried them out under enemy fire. Fortunately, they accomplished this dangerous task without accident. They were recommended for a military medal. The 6 dead had to spend the day in the trench. There are no words to describe something so sad and disturbing.
May God be blessed, and thank you for your prayers, for I have just had a very terrible time. The cross you gave me, the Happy Death Medallion, is what saved me. We just lost Captain Beaubien, killed at Saint-Eloi. Lieutenant Colonel Peltier's brother, who had just arrived from the 41st Battalion, was killed by a large caliber shell. He never knew what hit him. You could never picture the sight of so much death. The 40th Bat has been practically annihilated. Out of 4,000, only 300 came back alive.
Dear Stella, we are settling down to trench life. We came straight up to the line after a 6-day march, but it is a home as quiet a place as we have ever struck. I am sitting down in a trench writing this, and there isn't a sound around. I am enclosing a little snap taken a few days after we came out of the line. Some looking creature, eh? The weather is beautiful today, although a little cold. Reminds me of one of those beautiful fall days at home. A shame to be at war, isn't it? Bye-bye. Leo.
The word has yet to be invented to describe what once had been our front line, and what was left of the German front line. Not one trench remained. In front of us and behind us on our flanks, the earth was turned over, contorted, blackened, caved in, charred and burned to ashes, as if the enemy had wanted to uproot it all. Broken rifles, shredded machine guns, smashed ammunition boxes, countless rolls of barbed wire, picks, shovels, posts, bayonets, and strips of flesh miserably lying among torn entrails, mutilated arms, severed legs, and crushed skulls.
My dearest Mater, I know you wish to know the details of what happened. On the 28th of August, shortly after the beginning of one of our attacks, I was hit in the right side by a bullet, which made a through-and-through wound, fracturing 2 ribs in its course. As I was being dressed by a stretcher-bearer, a shell exploded at our side, killing the poor stretcher-bearer instantly and causing severe wounds to my right and left legs. Fortunately, no bones were broken in the left leg, but the right was badly shattered, and it was found necessary to amputate just above the knee. Most devotedly, your son George.
I went over to the cemetery last night. They have millions buried. Some Canadians, but did not know any of them at all. Lots of officers. The officers have graves to themselves, but the privates are 2 in a grave. Each have a wooden cross at the head, and all are filed up nicely. With love, Catherine.
Dear Mr. Laboutier, please accept my deepest sympathy at the loss of your very gallant son. I feel his loss is not only one to his battalion and his country, but also a very personal one. We were at the Somme fighting together, and his bravery and gallantry there was simply magnificent. He would have made a splendid officer. By his death, the battalion loses one of the finest men it ever had. Please express my deepest sympathy to all his family.
My dear Mrs. MacDonald, she was wounded by a piece of shrapnel, and the femoral artery was severed and she died of shock. Her suffering was not long. Her funeral was wonderful. About 100 Canadian sisters with British and American officers of the staff and area all attended. This is comforting, for it shows the high esteem in which she was held by her fellow officers. I can scarcely realize that all this has come to pass. She was everything to me. Captain W. Ballantyne.
I am almost certain I will be eating Christmas dinner in Charlebourg, because I will have 4 months of convalescent leave, and that means being sent back to Canada. I hear that it's hard to say no to our good Lord. Pray that he makes it so.
Dear Mother, I have reached Quebec City after a very pleasant crossing. Everywhere I go, I feel I am an honor to the family.
My dearest Mater, London on the news of the armistice went wild with joy. Hundreds of thousands of people thronged the streets, shouting, singing, and dancing. Still, I should have preferred very much to have been with the battalion in France. I can imagine what wild scenes took place along the battlefront.
Against twisted barbed wire atop what was left of the parapet, 2 soldiers, one Canadian, the other German, each with a bayonet in the stomach, were leaning close to each other, the deadly rifles crossed to form an X. The German, head tilted back on a sandbag, legs slightly bent, had been stabbed through the heart. The Canadian's left arm had been broken, the enemy bayonet having sliced him through and through above the heart, was sticking out the back of his left shoulder. His right hand grasping his adversary's epaulette. He died there on his right arm, his head tilted. Both just 20 years old.
C'est avec regret que je dois vous informer qu'un rapport officiel a été reçu au sujet de votre fils.
Приношу вам свои соболезнования в связи со смертью этого героически погибшего солдата.
Dass wir eine Nachricht über Ihren Sohn erhalten haben. Bitte nehmen Sie mein tiefstes Beileid zum Tode eines tapferen und heldenhaften
Ich habe in einem Lazarett gearbeitet, als ich Ihren Sohn kennenlernte.
Eram de serviciul apostol de ajutor când l-am întâlnit pe fiul dumneavoastră. Deși era rănit, își păstrase până...
Während Ihr Sohn in einem Schützengraben mit einem Kameraden sprach, schlug eine Bombe ein.
С огромным сожалением я сообщаю вам о получении официального сообщения о вашем сыне.
Please accept my deepest sympathy at the loss of your very gallant son.